How to Create a Glitch Monologues. Season 1, Chapter 3. With this podcast, I'd like to talk a little bit about the celestial rhythms and how they affect human behavior, and also gateways, and show how those two ideas are connected. With this, I hope to provide a bit of a framework to understanding many of the ideas expressed in the podcast in relation to the complete series. I'd also like to provide a little bit of context to the discussion of some of those ideas. So first off, a gateway is a common feeling created by a common orientation relative to some object or idea. Now that means that any object can act as a conduit, so to speak, for the formation of a gateway as between two individuals. It doesn't have to be an object in the physical sense. It can be a location, as two people can form a common orientation in space relative to some point in space. But suffice it to say, there are almost an infinite number of possible gateways created by locations and points in space as between two individuals on the planet Earth. Now, be that as it may, objects themselves can create gateways in the sense that two individuals form a common orientation relative to that object, which means that large objects such as the planet Earth or the Moon or the Sun all create gateways because they act as conduits for the common experiences between two commonly oriented individual actors. So to give you an example, if a person stood on the planet Earth and the Earth was rotating around the Sun at a predictable pace, and someone stood on the Moon and the Moon orbited around the Earth at a predictable pace, there would be a point in time when the Moon and the Earth would overlap, so to speak, relative to the Sun, at which time those two individuals would have a common orientation in space relative to the Sun. So, in other words, gateways are created in the moment they are transitory. When we're dealing with moving objects, and if we look at it from the standpoint of a more microcosmic perspective, we can also say that in any given room two individuals may form a common orientation to a point in space or relative to some object, in the sense that, for example, they may be standing on either side of an object, such as a table or a chair, and therefore may have some degree of their experience overlapping due to that common orientation. So, gateways can be formed in rooms. They can be formed on different planets or planetoids. They can be formed all over the planet Earth. So, with that in mind, I can explain how the celestial rhythms impact human sociality. So, if an individual, let's say, was to fall asleep in Toronto and another person was to fall asleep in, say, Berlin, then there is a point in time when they both awake down, in the near future. And if they were to say move in the same direction relative to the Earth once they awake, this common movement relative to the Earth creates a gateway between them. The same thing goes for simple tasks, complex tasks in a variety of different types and forms of human behavior. They can all create a gateway between two individual actors. Now, gateways can also be produced at the same time, or they can be produced laterally in time. So, what I mean by that is an individual in Toronto can get up from sleep and go have a shower at, say, 6 o'clock in the morning to get ready for work. Now another individual can, in the same building, can get up at 7:30 and go have a shower in order to get ready for work. But if those two individuals manifest the same specific behaviors at different times or set apart in time, it's also possible between them to create a gateway because they exhibit common behaviors or orientations with respect to objects or with respect to the planet Earth. So, gateways don't have to be created in a single instant. They could be created laterally in time as well. Now to move on to the celestial rhythms. When the sun rises in the east, it wakes people on one side of the globe who begin their morning routines. Now those movements, those actions are very much like a wave through the Earth, because as the sun passes over from one side of the globe to the other, people wake up and they exhibit the same patterns, the same behaviors as those temporally who preceded them. So, suffice to say, these behaviors create gateways between different people on different parts of the globe at different times. Now that I've explained this in a general sort of way, I'd like to talk a bit about what the significance is of this. So basically, what I'm saying is, if two individuals form a common orientation relative to some object, for example, let's say, relative to the planet Earth, this creates a conjoining link between their unconscious minds, which means that, as the pattern flows through the population of the Earth relative to the solar cycle, for example, there is a delayed link between the unconscious minds of the social participants. So, in other words, individuals, let's say at the far east side of the globe, they wake up first, so they shower first or bathe first. They eat their breakfast first, they go to work first of all the people on the planet Earth. In any given day, this means that as their thought processes produce new patterns and they start to think about new things or different things or whatever's on their mind or the news, the weather, various other things that may come to mind. These things are passed with a delay through that unconscious link to the next wave. So to speak of actors further to the west, away or out of the path of the sun's rays. So, essentially, what I'm saying is the solar cycle, or at least the rotation of the Earth, creates a kind of delayed link between the minds of social participants from the east to the west, which means that this linkage creates trends and the movement of ideas from east to west. Now that being said, that is not the be-all end-all of the discussion because there are other patterns. Other celestial rhythms which are also important, such as the lunar cycle, such as the planetary cycle, such as the galactic cycle. But you must start to see how the rhythms of planetary bodies or the celestial rhythms may impact how we experience reality and what we think about on any given moment of any given day. So that's the idea I wanted to express with this podcast, and I'll move on to another topic with the next. Thank you.